Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. A warm welcome to everybody in this joyous event. Today we are launching the Global Hub, which was created by the Club of Amsterdam in the last couple of months. We have a couple of very interesting speakers and an audience. Feel free to put your comments or questions in the chat. I will keep an eye on that. The purpose of this session is to have a dialogue about how to communicate in a virtual environment. So, I would first like to give the floor to Aksinya Staar. Please introduce yourself and explain to us what exactly the polymath mindset is.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Aksinya. I live in Austria, and yes, I've been into research on polymathy and multidimensional humans for like about more than 5 years now. I'm also an advisor, a futurist, and so I'm working at the crossroads of living systems, talents, and technology. And one of my focuses as a polymath myself, I focus on many things. This is what makes a polymath. But one of my focuses is exactly that the research of the human potential. And this is what I want to connect with today's topic to show this human perspective, because this is what we forgot when we talk about the philosophy of technology. We forget that the human is still there, the human component is still there, and a polymath as a phenomena, it's an old phenomena. We had polymaths starting from Stone Age. It's basically today we define it as somebody who has three three dimensions, like a depth, breadth, and integration. It means that somebody who is an expert, or at least a master of several domains, and apart from that, having several interests field one is exploring. Then the depth dimension is that one is actually deep into several things, not just superficially. It means that one has been researching or studying or working deeply on something for several years at least from 5 years, I would say. And then the integration means that we actually synthesize the knowledge based on this huge variety of knowledge, experiences, all of that. And this is a very beautiful version of what we can be, I would say. Yes. I've written 2 books about it, so you can check my profile.
Hardy, I'm sure you have a question in this respect because you're also creating some kind of environment with various insights, and maybe you also call it polymath mindset. What would be a first question of you for Aksinya?
Well, as you know, Mario, I'm a very slow thinker. I'm still introspecting about what I just heard. And I would like to read up a lot more about it before I actually make any comments or even ask any questions. Obviously, I've written a couple of books about reality and what reality is and how reality is consumed by humans and how it's projected and how it's interacted and so on. So there's a lot of touching points here between what I just heard and This is the kind of things, the kind of research that I done in my life. So I would like to hear a practical example in how that can be actually applied in introspection and reasoning and decision making in understanding the world.
Is your question to me?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah, very beautifully can it be applied. So, for instance, a practical example, I can give best example of myself, although there is a huge list of amazing people, but it's always better to to speak from your personal experience. So, like, for instance, I studied linguistics, it's my field of study. Then somehow life turned that I went for many years, like over 15 years, I was very deep into personal management, talent acquisition, talent management, talent development, all that. And then also on the side, and also now, and then for a long time, like over 10 years, I was very deeply into alternative education with children. I mean, pedagogy, but alternative pedagogy. It means that at least these three things I'm really very deep in. Yeah. So and what do I do with this now? And then on the side where I was in different NGOs and communities and exploring following my intellectual quest and exploring things like participative democracy, uh, Web3 data space. Now I'm working on that, for instance. Of course, I mean, literature, philosophy, anthropology, lots of things which I studied either with or working within organizations or working on projects or self-exploration. So this is on my homepage. If you check, I have created a diagram of how it looks like, this kind of knowledge scope. And then now what I see, whenever I work on a project, I basically now mostly work as an advisor. So people engage me for what? They say, you have such a vision of things, because I fuse all that and immediately I see how things are connected. I draw on my deep expertise in these fields because I understand how language happens, how communication works, what is the essence, like epistemology, and then how it actually works on the level of learning, how it works with children, how it works with adults. Why is there problems that these systems like education system and world of work do not actually work well together? So the school education doesn't produce the right people for the world of work, so and all of that. So people say, yeah, this scope is so amazing. We want you as somebody who can consult us on a very on the growing complexity, because companies they are fighting with complexity. They don't understand, and you need somebody with this multidimensional vision of things, how things are connected, and not just because I read some books, but because I actually lived for decades in these topics, and I apply this knowledge beautifully. I synthesize, I innovate within the scope of these core disciplines, and then the satellite of that knowledge and experience. And this is why you need polymaths in the world of work, and this is increasing. We have more and more polymaths, thank God. So this is an example how it works. You have your domain knowledge, and then people want this to solve complex problems. So basically, polymaths are there to solve problems which one good specialist is not able to see, because you need to see the complexity and the interconnectivity of things.
When you say interconnectivity, what do you mean with interconnectivity? Because you're saying some things that I'm researching for the last 50 years and written a lot about. So let me give you my version of what I'm just hearing and where I believe what you're saying, what that what that actually means and what that is. So when you learn, so you refer to school education, and then I'm always arguing that school education is just metadata, nothing else. What we really should be learning is what things cause. So when you, for example, see the shape of a chair in a room, and you looking at that thing, you don't think, "Oh, chair." No, you think sitting, resting. You always look at things in terms of what they do, what they cause with respect to your interest, your specific one. Now, the interest of everyone is a different one, no? So for the next one, the chair is a good piece of firewood, and they can make it warm, and that is their vision of what the chair should be and how it benefits them to their specific interest because they're freezing and they think they can burn that thing and can make it warm. So and I'm using very simple examples here and trying to be funny here, but so when you say interconnectivity, everything in this universe is interconnected through causation. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, of course. But the problem is that we were trained not to see it. That is the problem. And when you develop your polymathy, you learn how to see it automatically. I mean, you don't learn it on purpose. It just happens that you start seeing the connections where usually other peoples may miss them. And also, of course, you touched a very important point. It's all about relationships. Yeah. So it's interconnections and relationships, as we know from the complexity theory, that actually there are no things, there are relationships. Yes.
The last thing I want to say, you should read my book, The Quantum Relations Principle, which
Yes,
I
should
please.
all read your books.
published in 2016. I think
Yes.
you will find it very interesting.
Great. Thank you. I will definitely.
There is a question in the chat, and I would like to change the question a little bit. Angela asks, um, how can you implement polymath thinking, or how does it help? But I would like to change it a little bit to the new generation. So you also in your publications talk about the history of learning. So what have changed in the minds of Gen Z that we need to know to be able to implement polymath thinking?
They're actually doing it much better than we are because this is kind of a very interesting byproduct of social media. I mean, we're all, of course, good at blaming social media for this and that, and there is a lot to blame it. But one thing social media did great, it's actually it opened the mind of people. And since we are, as older generation, probably are not that flexible as the younger ones, because I have a daughter who is 14, so I'm actually experiencing that daily. I seeing how she lives and her friends. So what they are doing much better than we are, for them there are no borders. There are no borders, no boundaries in many ways, no disciplines. For them, the world is fluid. Fluid. That's why what I was actually wanted to talk about is multi-dimensional beings and post-humanism. I hope I will have a chance to speak about it more in depth. So. The Gen Z, they are brilliant. I mean, they're brilliant. They're very flexible. They're very fast. They're great interconnectors. For them, everything is connected. And what I love about them most is that they are not, because many of them are actually already not. They are so-called third culture kids. Yeah, many are not actually born in the countries their parents are born, or I mean, this is a huge movement into that direction. So they're growing into this global osmosis of knowledge and humans and relationships, and they connect immediately. They connect so easily with each other on various topics. So this beauty of human connection, I see it's much more than actually it's being written everywhere. Oh God, they are all looming under the screens. No, they're not. they're actually connecting, they're actually talking, they're actually playing, they have an interest in lives which we have no idea about, but because I can see it's happening, and they're learning a lot. Of course, the problem which they have, and that's why, for instance, for my daughter, what I do, I educate her in philosophy. And I believe strongly, and this you will read in my second and my third book, that we need the grounding in philosophy, in spirituality, in something very deep and profound. We need that absolutely. But then we have to also let them be more let them be more open and flexible as they are. So combine this polymath, the polymath mindset, if I may add it here, is the ability to see this interconnectedness and to be that actually, yeah, to realize what you are, that you are a multitude of everything, yeah, and then you apply this knowledge in whatever you do, and it has a relevance to AI that that this is actually what I wanted to speak about in my talk, that AI is, it looks a lot like a polymath. I mean, you can say it's very polymathic in many ways. It is not a polymath, and it probably can never be, but it is polymathic in a way that it has much more knowledge than, I mean, data sets, much more than we are, and it's also very integrative if you prompt it this way. This is a very important thing. AI will not deliver polymathic results if you don't prompt it. And this is the thing why I think I made some like experiments where I put polymaths and AI together, and what happened, that polymaths gave always better answers, better, more interesting, more innovative, more unique ideas than AI, because they knew how to use that. Because naturally they're using this, and so AI is not there actually yet, at least.
We will get back to AI, but you mentioned a beautiful bridge to our next speaker, because we have a respected philosopher among us, which is Mathijs. So I would like to, and Mathijs in his introduction notes mentioned that he is not afraid to ask dangerous questions. So I challenge you, Mathijs, please ask a dangerous question.
Thank you. Let me first start with expressing my resonance. There's a lot of stuff I'm hearing that I'm just kind of digesting. Things you said about education, about Gen Z. So I see all kinds of things we could talk about more. So I like the idea that I hear people talk about things that that resonate with me, ideas that also I have. So that's a good feeling to do. Yeah, let me do my pitch before because dangerous questions, they create a tension, and I need like a strategy for releasing that tension, I guess. So let me take my notes here for a second. Yeah, so I think a lot of things I want to say have been said in a sense. I sense a great need for the kind of dialogue we talk about. We know we live in a world that's fragmented and filled with conflict. I don't know if Hardy already mentioned it. There's a really ancient story about 6 blind men and an elephant. Sometimes they're 7, and they have this truth in their perspectives, but they fail to see what's really going on. And this has to do with connection. I wrote a little piece about this. I wrote a little thing in my timeline, kind of describing my idea of dialogue. So I feel like one of these 6 blind men. And I kind of reframed myself to a more Socratic perspective on things around me, on reality, because I know how much I don't know, and I feel strongly that the way out of that, to get back to some kind of like more stable meaning, is that you have to do that together. And this is kind of what we miss in online discourse. So how do we come together and do something to kind of escape this trap of being one of the six blind men? And so that's kind of the thing I want to achieve with the dialogues. That's what I would want to be doing, to see, recognizing all the perspectives, to find a kind of common flow of meaning. The physicist David Bohm has a theory on dialogue, starting from the presumption that the whole universe is connected. And so when you dialogue, there's a kind of superstructure that emerges. And that's a common flow of meaning. And this I find an interesting idea and thing to pursue. So that's kind of how I would like to do the dialogues. Not completely unstructured, but not without a purpose, but not goal-oriented. And so I would like to just do what we do now, exchange ideas, see where we recognize our ideas, where we differ, and see what emerges. Kind of like more like a jam session than like a performance. Yeah, this is my well, and then yeah, well, the dangerous question is, I was a math teacher for a while, and then we had to do online teaching, and I see very positive things in how Gen Z handles social media. I have a Gen Z son who's 19, and I see he's super connected because he has friends all over Europe, and they get together every now and then. And those are unique connections that are really facilitated by our modern world. But I think also we miss a lot with online communication. And so there's a challenge there. I wonder. I kind of feel pretty good about how we're succeeding here. But that would be the challenge and the dangerous question with the dialogue. If you want to create a common flow of meaning, you want to resonate on more than one level. It's not the words, it's the body language. And if you're in the room together, there's all kinds of ways in which our bodies even synchronize. And I don't know if that happens when we have this remote communication, but I would be curious to kind of cultivate that. So I don't know if we're going to succeed in creating this common flow of meaning, but that would be my approach.
Beautifully said.
Thank
Common
you.
flow of meaning. Angela, thank you for your question. I'll get back on that after Hardy gave his opening notes. Hardy, I know you. Please share your beautiful mind with us today.
I'm glad that at least you know me because I still don't know myself. I'm still on a journey trying to figure myself out. But um, with all that I heard, I probably deviate a little bit from my opening remarks, although I get back to them in a moment. Um, I think one of the most significant changes that we are experiencing in our lifetime um, is the impact of something that I was for decades incredibly excited about that finally would emerge, and that is AI. I mean, I got into AI some 50 years ago, 45 years ago, and I became fascinated by it, and I tried to push that field forward, and now finally we arrived at something that was such a niche thing that suddenly became this mainstream thing. And I have to say it's the most disappointing thing I have ever imagined because it's not at all what it's supposed to be and what I was hoping it would become. I think AI is the Manhattan Project of our time. Except this time it's not Mr. Oppenheimer that is doing it, or just one Mr. Oppenheimer under the secretive cloak of a government. It's everyone that is an Oppenheimer that is having a laptop in his home and is creating code that contributes to what is now commonly referred to as AI. And I think it has become one of the most disastrous and most dangerous things that were ever imaginable. It's not at all what we think it is. And one of the most traumatic things is that we now believe that ChatGPT is AI. It certainly is a version of AI, generative chatbots. It's a subset of AI. But what it has done is it actually has moved society into a completely new virtual space. It's like we are now ending up in the Matrix somewhere. We are not living real connections, the real world, real society. And people are not becoming smarter through AI. They're actually becoming significantly dumber. And we can actually measure that by taking the average IQ over the last 100 and I think 135, 138 years or so. We have pretty good data on that. And we know that exponentially we're becoming dumber since about around the year 2004, 2006, where IQs leveled off and we are now going on a slope down. There's a very interesting term that emerged, and it's called the influencer. Everyone now wants to be an influencer. And if you become an influencer, you are really cool, you make money, you have lots of followers, and so on. And what we have created actually is we have created people that want to influence at any cost, and influencers becoming more and more sociopathic. They actually don't care of the quality of their influence. They just care about the influence itself. And the more provocative and the more outrageous it is, and the more people say, "Oh, you need to watch this," or they're sending each other all of these YouTube shorts. And I mean, I see young people and even middle-aged and older people sitting on their little device, and then because their attention span is simply not more than 20 seconds, it's not like in the olden days, when we were reading a book, we would reflect on it, we would have a discussion about it, we would spend hours on a thought and develop the thought. No, today we're down to 20 seconds, and we are no longer developing knowledge as a human. So we're losing human agency completely. We are now consuming information, not knowledge, information. And we are having no longer even filters for that information, no matter what it is. If it sounds outrageous enough and conspiratory enough and crazy enough, we love it. And so finally, our politicians around the world have figured out how to get into the world of influencing. And so what we have seen is we have seen a complete and total deterioration of moral compass, of civic understanding, of social responsibility, of understanding of what is true and what is not. So we have basically let go of all filters, and we just having this continuous stream of YouTube shorts and TikTok shorts and Facebook shorts and whatever stuff that is circulated around the world, just entering our conscience, our brains, and literally poison us from morning to night. And entirely constructed by what we are worshiping so much, influences. And we don't care anymore if the influencer is a good person, a bad person. What the actual purpose of the influencer is, as long as we are entertained. Entertainment now to us is more important than anything else. And I want to just open a parallel thought here. In the beginning of the industrialization, when we were doing everything, by hand and through human labor, suddenly machines came about that would take over a lot of human labor. And the explosion of population continued. And so we had more and more humans that are capable of doing work, but we had less and less laborious work to do. And so that created a completely new type of jobs, the office worker, the service industry, in which humans used their thoughts, their intelligence, their brains, their linguistics, their ability to interact in order to have a job and to provide value for which they could earn a paycheck. Well, now with the emergence of chatbots and the emergence of generative AI and the emergence of newer and better and more interesting versions of open AI projects such as ChatGPT and many others now, um, we are now eroding that space as well. I don't know when you have spoken the last time to a human being when you called customer service, but my guess is it's been years. So everything now is being taken over here in this space also. So I wonder where humans are going to find their next jobs.
Yeah.
And so there are two things, just two things that happen in parallel. We losing human agency, we losing human application, and we becoming dumber in the process.
Yeah. But
This is not,
before we all end up in a depression,
I can counter it a little bit because I also see Gen Z, my son, being smarter and smarter about facing this challenge. He knows how much BS is out there. He knows how much every email, everything is manipulating him, and it's very difficult to scam him because he's become so skeptical, and so he's still overwhelmed and he's distracted by all these clickbait. But he's constantly developed because he knows he has to develop strategies to cut through this kind of like hell you just described, Hardy. I mean, I agree with you, but it's dismal because it's. But I see young kids also facing this problem, understanding that it's a problem, and wanting to kind of break free from this, yeah, this nonsense chaos of pure distraction without any production. So I see there's also other movements that kind of give me a little bit of hope.
Aksinya,
Yes.
you wanted to add something.
No, it's not that I wanted to add. I have actually a whole pitch, which is really very relevant, but it's like a talk. I have to just
Can
say
you
it. It's
limit
not a
it
sentence.
to 5-6 minutes?
No, I can't. But you will not, if you hear it, you will not want to stop.
Ah,
Because this is actually, it probably was a misconception because I thought that I will start with that and then, yes, I don't know. I can try, be very fast.
yeah, please.
Okay, I can try skip something. Okay, so we're living in a time of spirals of innovation, spirals of collapse, spirals of meaning and unmeaning, and in the center of that is the human. Or does it? I stand before you with a simple question that contains a storm inside. What does it mean to be human in the age of AI, in the age of super complexity, and the age where even life itself feels increasingly unstable? To answer this, I want to take you in a quick journey, 12,000 years back. From stone tools and fire rituals, we humans gradually sculpted our skills, beliefs, and ambitions across millennia. And then the past 500 years, they accelerated so rapidly that they reshaped everything: time, identity, power, and the planet. What sparked this acceleration? Many say the European Renaissance, that magical window between the 14th and the 17th century when humanism emerged like a torch lighting the corridors of ignorance. And humanism, let's remember, was revolutionary. It placed the human into the center of meaning. It said, you matter. Your reason, your creativity, your potential matter. Out of this ethos rose the polymaths. Leonardo da Vinci, who painted The Last Supper and sketched helicopters, as we know. Galileo, who looked into the stars and saw a different truth. Copernicus, Bacon, Dürer, More. They reimagined what a human could be. They were not specialists, they were multidimensional beings who shattered the walls between the disciplines. Then the Industrial Revolution was their grandchild. It inherited the fire and turned it into engines, factories, nation states, and economic empires. But with that came reduction. We shrank the human from a cosmic mystery into a cog in the machine, efficient, predictable, replaceable. Humanism, once a liberator, now became a paradox. It elevated us from the medieval fatalism, and it trapped us into a loop of self-centric logic. I confess, I called myself a humanist, but something began to trouble me. The more I looked at the world, the climate collapse, the wars that should happen in the 21st century, the loneliness behind the screens, I felt something is missing. By placing the human at the center of everything, we forgot life itself, life with capital L. So I started searching. As a polymath researcher, I became fascinated by human potential, by those who seem to be transcend categories. And then something clicked. I realized that we're all multidimensional. It's not that some people are polymaths and others are not. It's that we have forgotten that each one holds multitudes. And the world doesn't treat us that way. We are reduced to checkbox identities, job titles, marital status, passport, productivity, and now AI. Multimodal, multilingual, increasingly capable, charming, and whatever. And it chats with our children, it replaces our romantic partners, it redefines so many things. So here is the turning point. If we cling to a one-dimensional view of humans, we will lose the race with our own technologies. Not because AI will become more intelligent than us, but because we stop being intelligent about what we are. And what is a multidimensional human? We are emotional, intellectual, physical, spiritual. We live across different systems, ecological, technological, historical. We hold multiple selves, roles, talents, and they evolve. Multidimensional humans are not futuristic fantasies. We are. And recognizing that is an act of cultural evolution. Because today we don't live in a linear cause effect world anymore. The ocean acidifies and your food chain collapses. A distant flood reshapes your supply chain. A server in Iceland can now change your emotional state via algorithm. This is super complexity, and this is also life, touching us again and again. And just as the Renaissance once expanded our idea of what a human could be, I believe we need a new Renaissance, a post-human Renaissance. And here is where post-humanism enters the stage. No sci-fi, not anti-human, this is important, but a radical questioning of human exceptionalism. It asks, what if we are not the crown of creation? What if we are just one node in a vast web with animals, ecosystems, machines, microbes, all shaping who we are? Posthumanism invites us to decenter oneself, to think beyond binaries, human, non-human, natural, artificial, body, machine, because if we actually think about that, it's all connected, yeah? And posthumanism reveals our complexity, because like when a farmer uses soil sensors to tend their crops, is is it a technologist, a biologist, or a cyborg? When a single mother is also a gamer, a poet, a migrant, or an activist, are these roles, or actually is a fluid self? So posthumanist tells us we are always multidimensional. And the idea is not humans at the center, but humans as part of a larger and tangible system of natural life, technology, planet, possibility, everything. So we are here, we must stop thinking of ourselves as finished products. We must reclaim the right to be strange, complex, relational, unfinished, evolving. We must rediscover the art and the ethos of being multidimensional humans. And maybe that's what it means to be human today. That's it.
I'm glad that at least you paint a picture with a little light at the end of the tunnel.
There is a lot of light because I
Thank you
think
for
it's
that.
actually all very positive. It's not at all that bad, but it's a very complex thing. And people are not well with complexity because this is not how we're trained.
I would like to invite the audience to ask a question to Hardy or Mathijs or Aksinya. Is there, because I understood that Angela's question was kind of answered, but because Angela asked about what happens when AI takes over the specialized jobs, well, Aksinya explained that there is still some specialism to explore within us. Anybody else, or Angela, maybe another question? Kevin, you are also sharing a book.
Yeah,
What is
I asked a few questions. I think it was back to one of the earlier points. I think in these arguments for, you know, everything seems to be getting worse. I'd like to challenge that. I'm not saying the things are not bad, but are they actually getting worse? Or, and I think there's two things here. I'm very aware of the age demographic of the people in this call. And there's something that gets, you know, we all know that we have a different view as we get older, that things seem to be somehow worse or just different from when we were younger and maybe more naive or less informed and so on. I think there's a second element of this is we're now more connected than we've ever been. And so we're more aware of all of the bad things, and bad news travels quickly, you know, so whenever there's a bad thing, we all know about it. So when we're saying that we feel less safe than when we were younger, of course we do. Why would we not? We know much more about the bad things that are happening in the world. It doesn't mean that the bad things were not happening before. And some of the dialogue, I think, here really reminds me of, you know, looking to the historical arguments about, oh, television is rotting the minds of our children, or computer games are rotting the minds of our children, or the web is, or social media is, and now it's AI and blah, blah, blah. I have far more confidence in our people, like upcoming, I'm using that most general way possibly, but our children and humanity, to look at all these things and go, sure, I love being entertained. I like looking at stupid cat videos, you know, whatever the thing is, right? Is it rotting my brain to the point that I'm more likely to vote for Donald Trump? Oh, well, now that's a good question, right? So is there a causality in there, or is there a correlation? And I think we need to be very careful about correlation versus causation in the mix. And certainly we have new threats, absolutely new threats. And AI is one of them. But it doesn't mean that humans are getting worse. You know, and I think maybe it was Matthias's, somebody's son anyway, is resilient to this, because we
also
also
my daughter. No,
yeah,
they're not getting worse; they're getting better. In fact,
well, they're just adapting and evolving, as did we, to a whole new category of information tools. You kind of, where a different generation found them hard to absorb because they were different and found them threatening. And here is a new category of things which we didn't grow up with, so they're a bit threatening because they're not normalized. But our kids are just like, yeah, sure, that's an awful thing, and that's a good thing, and you know that person's going to jail, and people are getting caught up in cults, just like they always have been. But I think that it's the causality and correlation piece here of like, how do we pick this apart and say, what's driving the shift to the right? Is it social media or is it other factors? I think the causality is somewhere else.
There are different
The correlation is the communication.
There are different reasons.
Yeah.
Thank you for this different perspective and more optimistic one. It helps me also. Thanks a lot for making this clear to us that this is, because I think I agree. Yeah.
I can only add what I know from my daughter, that there is a whole blast of influencers. Yes, hardy influencers on TikTok and other media who are actually promoting philosophy for children. Philosophy, literature. Teenagers are inspired. Yes, of course, they, go more into like Dostoevsky, Kafka, and all this stuff, but they love it. I mean, my daughter started reading Dostoevsky with 12, not because she could read that actually, but because she was inspired by TikTok to read Dostoevsky. I mean, just think of that. Just pause for a second and think of that. Not by me. But I think I was reading with 15, yeah. So it's that there is a huge now. They promote slow cooking. They promote a very healthy life. There are like trends. They start trends like, okay, so now we all concentrate on studies and keep ourselves healthy, do exercises and all that. These are huge trends which are within this generation. You know, somebody starts that. You know, people do this. They're young people. Then they are also discussing a lot of political things. I mean, depends on what, of course, your thread will show you your own likes and your preferences, definitely. And of course my daughter is very progressive, so definitely she is getting all this kind of sets, but it's huge numbers of people reading all that, watching all that, creating these videos, you know. And you can see these are people who are actually leaders, because in order to be able to stand up for some topic and create videos on that, you really, try to make a video for 3 minutes. It takes so much time to make something of value, you know. So this is that I see totally there is a new wave of leadership among these youngsters. They're brilliant, they're amazing, they're much better off than all of us together, I tell you. And they will definitely they will put this world right. Don't worry about that. I think what we should actually worry is about ourselves, probably more than about them, because they are really okay. And many I heard from them, oh, TikTok just eats my time. I don't want it. I know people who just block TikTok. They say, I'm not interested anymore because it's just eating my time. You know, these are young, like teenagers. So don't worry so much about that. And influencers are good. Like, I consider myself an influencer. I do the work deliberately to influence people with good ideas. I dedicate lots of my time for that. And I'm very happy that it's working actually, that people are getting inspired, they read, they come up with questions and all that. So yeah, I feel it's a lot more positive than it might look.
Alex, is your microphone working, or do you want me to rephrase your question?
The microphone is working.
I think it's a very good question. So if you can please repeat it.
Okay, so I had two questions, but I think first of all, thanks a lot. Learned a lot from all of you guys so far, although I joined late. And all of you are right from your perspectives and add value to the conversation. My question is that we have, for whatever reason, deviated from nature, which is an amazing template which has been working for billions of years, via industrializations. First, by mechanical industrialization. I'm an engineer, by the way, so I was part of that process. And then onwards to industrialization of information, and now we're consuming information just as we were consuming, iron ore and all of that a century or 2 centuries ago on an industrial scale. Now, the consequences of deviating from nature, in my opinion, are that you create downstream problems at an industrial scale. And that's reflected in our health outcomes, these kind of mental issues, the consumption for the planet, sustainability outcomes, and so on. And then our direction of travel now is to fix those downstream. Much, much costlier, much, much less sustainable compared to actually designing the methodology upstream so that you don't go downstream. In the US, for example, the cost of treating a diabetic patient is $60,000 a year. The cost of preventing a diabetic from happening, it takes 10 years earlier, is about $300 a year. Much less costly and much more sustainable.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do we go? And we seem to be here discussing somewhat a downstream problem, something that's gone out of control, and we are becoming, to an extent, potentially zombified by AI. A kind of downstream problem because we have allowed the tech bros to sort of curate how we consume information. How can we actually create the movement in order to actually design systems that realign ourselves with nature? There is a template already, it's called nature, so that we don't consistently live in the downstream solution world.
I have a very short, I know I'm talking too much, but just a very short thing. The problem is with the experience. Ask yourself how many people are actually experiencing nature on a daily basis. And most of people who live in cities, they are not experiencing nature on a daily basis. And that is the problem. We can, philosophize, we can create materials, learning materials, videos, VR experiences, whatever. But because people are not connected to nature physically, they're not actually going out and smelling the soil and looking at these insects, That's why you can't lecture anybody, and you can't develop a huge strategies unless people are not physically connected to nature. So if we will solve that, if we will somehow create, conditions for people having more contact with nature, then it will work. Otherwise, it's just theory, and nothing will happen unless they experience that physically. Also, with kids, it's a huge problem that they do not have this chance.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's experiential. It's not what you know, it's how you know. So you can say as much as you want about stuff, but until you experientially experience the effect of it, as you say, the effect of nature, the effect of living healthily, the effect of wellness, that is the direction of travel. So I do agree with you.
I just wanted to add, I like your perspective on focusing on the design part of all these systems, because there's many ways you can look at them functionally, you can look at them in terms of where the bugs are, but the design aspect makes us kind of wise to think about things beforehand. And I like that too, because like in Gen Z, there's a lot of stuff and systems we don't really need, and fixing bureaucracies, but if you make good design decisions, you can grow new stuff out of smart design decisions. I like the design perspective a lot in a discussion about the future, because it kind of gives us a little bit more agency also about, we can make design decisions now to manage the downstream consequences.
Yes.
So,
And to your point about design, it's like we look at everything, the world, sustainability, and so on, as an external thing. But design comes from within ourselves. So we have to actually look at our behavior, what makes us tick. We are multidimensional beings. We are not just thinking cognitive beings. Our body is not for the transportation of our heads. So design comes from within. So hence that direction towards interdisciplinarity, and the direction towards polymathy is actually a direction of travel, I think, as in vertical development of people to be leaders in their own small way, to lead their lives first and then lead others. That also is an element of design. But if you talk about design, most people think, okay, it's like industrial engineering, it's some sort of external building or, I don't know, planet or system design. But I think we should start from within. And I think we ignore that individual design because it's too sort of woolly or whatever we may want to call it.
We are very fastly moving towards the end of this session. Hardy, do you have some final remarks for us?
Yeah. I want to hook up on this example of the diabetics managing the patient costs $60,000 a year versus preventing 300. And this goes right to the core of how this whole discussion that we are having is a little bit like arranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Spending $60,000 on a patient, on a diabetics patient, that's a great business model.
Yeah.
We make money on that. We don't make money on preventing. And this gets to my to my next point. We have moved out of the age of enlightenment into the age of completely sociopathic economic greed. And everything that is done and every decision that is made on this planet is done now out of these motivations because we are no longer putting actually focus on creating value for society. We are only after how much money can I make out of doing this or that. Now, that does not include the people in this panel here. And yes, I'm hearing one citing his son, one citing his daughter about being totally out of sample. And they are wonderful people. And I believe they're wonderful people. Why? Because they are the descendants of wonderful, deep thinking, introspective parents. But let's face it, we are here in this whole panel are not the majority. We are not the moving part of society. And I just want to give you one other example. Think about the politicians that we have been electing in the last 10 years. If any one of them could have been elected 35, 40 years ago, impossible, impossible, because the social responsibility, morality, introspection, understanding, and so on, enlightenment that was going for a while really well has completely given away. We have, for example, now in the United States, a president that's all about transactions and business, making money. The greatest success stories that the man is now giving is trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in deals that are being made. So now that is the value that right now people are admire more than any other thing that makes society a more livable, more safer, more interconnected, more caring, and so on a world. So yeah, this is my comment, and I don't want to be negative. I just want to be realistic, so that out of that realism, maybe we can think of ideas how we are not speaking to the few that think like us, but how we actually can speak to the majority of this planet to actually understand where they are going in its current decisions that they are making for themselves and their society.
Thank you very much. Mathijs, your last 2 minutes.
Yeah, so well, the last thing I'm hearing, so I like Aksinya also talked about this, I like the idea of humanizing things, of putting us as humans and the human with all its complexities and all its levels back in the kind of center, And that kind of is a way for me to frame a kind of like more hopeful, because Hardy, I agree with you realistically, but I'm also in need of some kind of hopeful perspective. And yeah, so certainly tonight this brought some of it to me. This discussion on polymath is super interesting to me because I recognize myself a little bit in that. But it's very challenging to be a polymath because, you know, like, how do you stay focused? This is just one big challenge, but this is for another time. But let me say, I was very inspired, and I like the fact that we had very different opinions about like how dismal the future is. But I learned a lot, and I walk away with a good feeling about that. And I'm looking forward. So next week we do a dialogue. I'm looking forward to meeting some of you again. Thanks a lot. It was a lot of
Thank
fun.
you. Aksinya,
Thank you.
last remarks?
I don't know. I'm so happy that you got interested in the topic of polymathy, although it's really not like the ultimate thing, but it's helpful to see it from that perspective. I really want to kind of to spread the message of multidimensional humans, and that we have to see that we are much bigger than this. The industrial age has placed us into this box, you know, of being just small little something. And yeah, this is one thing, and another one is still the hope is actionable. That is the point. The hope is not a theory; it's a practice, and I can just say for myself, I do it every day. I do whatever I can, and I'm trying to reach out to people who are not probably where I am with my visions and ideas, but in the daily life, I talk to people I mean, really, on the street somewhere when I meet people, I always try to talk to them simple, like people with like, I don't know, taxi drivers, anybody, just talking to them and seeing how do they live, what are they, and giving them ideas. And you know, it works. But it works better if you do it, of course, personally. That works much better. And and I think, yes, I'm still hopeful that a lot is possible. And I think with the new generation, which we heavily underestimate, I'm sure they will make it better because they have learned from all of us already, you know.
Okay, I would like to thank all of you very much for contributing to this discussion. Hardy, it was lovely seeing you again. I learned from you today that we should focus on the development of knowledge, not just the use of knowledge, but the development of knowledge, and educate about information filters. I think that was a good insight that I picked up. Mathijs, also, thank you very much. I learned from you the famous, I think it was Socrates, but it can also be Aristotle. I know what I don't know. And it reminds me of a beautiful lecture from a professor at Moscow University who explained that our knowledge is just a little matchbox or a cork in the ocean. So all the knowledge is the ocean, and what we know is just this little cork in the ocean. And when you grow your knowledge, the things that you don't know grow equally. So yeah, that's beautiful. And Aksinya, thank you very much for the positive notes. There is a positive future. There is hope, and especially that the new generation will guide us through the new age challenges that we all face. So thank you very much, every one of you, and hope to see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This was a lot of fun. Bye.
Bye.